What is up? I'm going to break down real quick, just kind of a funny little thing, a goofy little thing that I just sent out to my email list, my Thought Bomb subscribers. I broke down my reading process, and as I was breaking it down, I realized it's very much the opposite of what people would expect, right? Quite a few people, and again, I've heard this through the grapevine. People said it to me like, "Hey, I want to be Nick when I grow up." And you don't. I can tell you right now, most people do not actually want to be like me. And here's why. I'm slow. I have a bad memory. I work really hard to have a bad memory, and I work really hard to be slow, which is not right. Most people don't follow somebody going, man, I want to be slow and have a bad memory like him. But here's the reality. The reality is, basically, I got questions about uh, believe it or not, I've read every book on that shelf. And so the question is, and I mean, I have, you know, notes upon notes upon notes. I probably have thousands and thousands of pages of those. You can see behind me, there's more on that over there. I got more on the conference table. I am actually a really slow, I don't read a book a day or a book a week like the Ty Lopez speed reading style. I'm actually a very slow reader. And what I do is I read something all the way through and I read it again and I highlight the key points. The problem with highlighting is that sometimes you tell your brain, hey, this is highlighted. You don't have to remember it because it's stored. So then I think about, okay, I'm highlighting this thing. What does this concept, what does this principle mean in my life, right? And I do that for the whole book. And then I go back. If I feel like it was useful, I go back to the highlights and I read the concept and principle. I remember what it means for my life. And I say, what does this mean in the context of business? What does this mean for coaching? What does this mean for fitness? What does this mean for biology? What does this mean for my clients? And that is what I write for hours and hours a day to avoid domain dependence. Okay, so it takes me a very, very long time to process. And the other thing I do, and I sent this in the email, is actively forget what I can forget. Okay, so again, if you've ever thought like, man, I kind of want to be like Nick, you don't. You don't want to invest in a bad memory and a slow processing time, is my guess anyway. So I actively forget things. And the reason why is sometimes I figured out how to solve a problem. Maybe I learned how to do an exercise, or I learned how to run a Facebook ad, right? And since then, my knowledge has updated. My knowledge about marketing, sales, my knowledge about physics, physiology, my levers have changed. What I don't want to do is rely on that memory that I reason to with outdated knowledge base, right? So I do reason to the ground up. It takes me a very, very long time. People come in for an office day, like, how do I do this like you did? And I don't have an answer. So we got to reason through this because I have completely different knowledge base than I did when I first figured this out. So what does that mean for you? There's actually a really cool benefit is I get to be slow. I get to have a bad memory, but in doing so, I also create a tremendous amount of shortcuts. This was Nick's miss yesterday. So that graph might look familiar. It blew some people's minds. Very, very effective. It took me a very, very long time and many, many hours to distill this down. I had to forget everything I know and reteach myself how advertising works based on this new base knowledge that I've been working on. So I don't speed read. I don't remember things, but I do recreate things and reinvent them, which is pretty cool. That's what I like to do. If that's what you like to do, awesome. But my guess is you don't want to have a bad memory and slow down. My guess is you want to speed up, which is why I just shared this whole process on my newsletter. You should jump on the newsletter. It's nickpeterson.com/bombs, like thought bombs, /bombs. And it'll show you how you get on the paid newsletter, which is pretty much, this is what everything means in terms of business. So when I learn stuff, it's like, what does this mean in fitness? What does this mean in business? What does this mean in relationships? What does this mean in my partnerships? How does a concept of, like, let's say relative change, what does that mean in terms of revenue growth? What does that mean in terms of weight loss? What does that mean in terms of developing strength? Like, what is that? And all of my business notes, all of my thoughts and all of my tests, because we have internal companies, we have 5 or 6 internal companies, plus 40 private clients that I work with very, very closely. What does that look like in business? And package it up, and I can mail that to you once a month. You don't have to be slow like me, because me and my team choose to process slowly and deeply, we can create things that allow you to move much, much faster and safer. That's the other thing. So that's that. The most recent is R3, Retention Referrals Raving Fans. I'm teaching it live on January 6th, all the way through. It's 6 weeks long, homework and everything. Basically invert the whole process, build your entire business backwards, because that's where the money's at. r3class.com is where you can go to get that and see. It took about 6 or 7 years to pull this together, and you can have the whole thing installed in your business in 6 weeks. I move slow, you move fast, right? r3class.com. Check it out. But you can also, if you're on my email list, if you're on the Thought Bomb list, you can go see my reading process. I just detailed it out to kind of show you how I decide what I read, how I read it, why I don't recommend people do what I do necessarily. Most people don't really want the understanding. They just want to know what to do, which is appropriate. That is the fastest path to happiness, is just knowing what to do to get to where you want to go. Cool. I'm going to go get ready for Nick's Miss. See you guys there.